is where I will defend the situation. Before you call me a monster and an animal for defending the situation, I will say this. The cop was following a procedure.
Never said I oppose fracking. Show the tape. Put it on your website. Put it on the website.
Live from Clark Studios in Rochester, New York. Broadcasting around the world. You're listening to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
We all know that there's a raging border crisis down at the U.S.-Mexico border. But what we don't quite understand is why the Biden administration continues to hold the truth from the American people. We know that more illegal immigrants than ever are trying to cross on a daily basis. Biden, Kamala Harris, Jen Psaki, and the rest of the left continue to deny that there's actually a crisis, and they claim that they have it all under control. Cue Ted Cruz, who doesn't believe a single word of it and decides to take it upon himself to head down there himself last week to get the real truth behind what's going on. Well, Ted Cruz exposes the truth, shows the American people exactly how inhumane and insanitary and disgusting the entire situation is. Yes, we know there was a little bit of an issue in 2019 under the Trump administration, but it was nothing like we're seeing today. As a matter of fact, at all-time highs, there was a 1,000 person per day issue. We now have 5,000 illegal border crossings per day under the Biden administration. That's 5 times what we saw during Trump. So no, I don't want to hear that we had the same issue during the Trump administration. Not even close. It was actually 5 times less than all-time record-breaking illegal crossings that we continue to see today. And Ted Cruz has now gone down there and taken live video footage of what's going on. Let's head over to the Keyboard Warrior Cam right now and see exactly what Ted Cruz has to say and what he personally videoed. And more importantly, what the Biden administration does not want you to see. Welcome to the show and welcome to Monday. Let's get started. So as we can see here, Ted Cruz has gone down to the U.S.-Mexico border to tell the people, the American people, what really went on. And this is what he captured.
Please respect. Please give dignity to the people. Please give dignity to the people.
So you work for the commissioner, your senior advisor. You were hired 2 weeks ago, and you're instructed to ask us to not have any pictures taken here.
Please respect the people.
Because the political leadership at DHS does not want the American people to know it.
Please respect the rules,
You keep
sir.
standing in front of the pictures, so
Please
you don't want the
respect the
pictures taken. The rules are arbitrary, and
Please
they're
respect
designed
the
to
rules
keep
and
the
give
American
the
people in the dark.
dignity and respect. That's all we ask.
Well, no,
dignity
it's
and
not.
respect.
You're asking, is this
Please-
dignity and respect? Look at
Please
these people.
give
There's
dignity
a
and
pandemic.
respect to the people.
Let me ask you. There's a
I
pandemic.
respectfully ask you, sir.
There is a pandemic.
With
Is
full-hearted,
this respecting the rights of these
full-heartedly,
kids?
I ask you. Please
Are you
respect
respecting the
people.
rights of these
This
kids?
is not a zoo, sir. Please don't treat the people.
You're right, and this is a
as such.
dangerous place.
Please don't treat the
And
people
your
like
policies,
this. That's all I ask
unfortunately,
for
are
you, sir.
trying to hide them. I understand
That's
you
all
were
I ask
instructed
you.
when 18
I
senators
ask you
came
to
down
please
here.
respect the people, give them dignity
I
and
respect them, and I
respect.
want to fix this situation.
We all want to
and
fix
the
this, sir. We
administration
don't
you're
want
working
this to
for is
happen anymore.
responsible for these conditions.
Please respect the people with dignity and
Okay.
respect,
And
sir.
I ask you to respect the people as well. This
I am
is not
respecting you.
respect.
I am respecting the
This
people.
is not respect.
So clearly, we have a big issue, and Cruz has gone down there to video the situation. What's unbelievable to see is, and know, is why the media is not allowed to capture these pictures. Why does it take Ted Cruz going down there to video what's really going on? Since when does America not allow the media to get the full truth? I mean, this is what China does. This is what communist countries do. They deny the press access because they don't want the people to know what's really going on. So when I talk about the direction that America's headed, that we're heading down a communist country, and people don't believe me, well, this is proof right here that we are, in fact, whether we want to call ourselves communist or not, it doesn't matter. That's neither here or there. The fact is we're acting very communist right now by not letting the press go down and take pictures. So we have senators now taking matters into their own hand, heading down to the border and taking pictures. And as we can clearly see in this video, this assistant is getting up in Ted Cruz's face and she refuses to let Ted Cruz take videos. And she keeps saying, please respect the rules. How about the fact that we respect the right to free press? How about we respect the rights to these children here who are being treated like absolute animals in cages? And we all know where the cages started. They started with Obama. Yes, Trump may have used some of them to keep children safe, but it was nothing like what we're seeing here today. We're seeing kids packed into these cages because Biden told everybody they were welcome. And now we're seeing the repercussions of his stupidity. And we're now not letting the American people know the truth. So Ted Cruz has gone down there. This lady keeps getting up in his face. She's saying this is not a zoo. And Cruz is like, well, you're right. This is not a zoo. So why are we treating these children like animals, which is what's going on? So yes, there is a raging border crisis. Cruz, Lindsey Graham, and others have gone down to the border to capture live footage of exactly how out of control it is. Let's head over to White House Communications Director and listen to what she had to say, which was an absolute shit show, when John Carl from ABC asked her. So John Carl presses White House Communications Director Kate Bedingfield on the Biden administration's response to the situation at the southern border. This is what she says, which is quite hilarious. The president is working as quickly as possible to address the situation. Ultimately, what we need to do is address the root cause of immigration. Kate, the root cause, we know what the root cause is. The root cause is very clear. Biden opened the floodgates and let everybody come storming in. He said, get ready. We're trying to uncover the root cause. Have you not seen the pictures of all the tens of thousands of immigrants wearing their Biden-Harris t-shirts? We know what the root cause of the situation is, Kate. They're wearing it on their shirts. So let's have a listen.
This week announced that Fort Bliss, for example, and Lackland Air Force, that
a lot to cover this morning with our first guest, White House Communications Director Kate Bedingfield. Kate, thank you very much for joining us on this Sunday. I want to start with those images from the Donna Detention Center. I mean, obviously not acceptable, horrific, not acceptable by the definition put forward by the president himself. What is the immediate problem to address this, and when will it be fixed?
Well, the president is working as quickly as possible to address the situation. He's using every possible avenue to ensure that we're getting these kids out of Border Patrol custody and into HHS facilities as quickly as possible. You've seen him just this week announce that Fort Bliss, for example, and Lackland Air Force Base are going to open up beds to bring these kids out of the Border Patrol facilities and into facilities that are better for temporary housing for them. But that's a temporary solution. It's a temporary solution. Ultimately, what we need to do is address the root causes of migration. It's something that President Biden did when he was vice president. He spent time in the Northern Triangle countries.
See, I love how we keep saying we're trying to address the root cause of immigration. They all know what the root cause is. Psaki knows, Kate knows, the entire Biden administration knows what the root cause is. I mean, we're not stupid. I know the left like to take the American people for fools, but at least half the country is not as dumb as the other half. Sadly, that's what's going on. I mean, how could you believe any of this stuff? So she keeps coming out, Jen Psaki keeps coming out, saying we're trying to get to the root cause of the problem, when we clearly know what the root cause is. But that seems to be their go-to excuse for everything. We're working on it. We're trying to get to the bottom of it. Yeah, we know what happened. Biden let everybody in. That's pretty much it. That's all she has to say.
People are migrating from, working to try to address the lack of infrastructure, the lack of programs like, for example, girls and boys clubs that allow these kids to be somewhere safe in their home country. So you saw last week, he asked Vice President Harris to take on dealing with the work and the diplomacy that's necessary in the Northern Triangle to prevent people from making this journey in the first place. That's the most important thing we can do to try to stem the tide. And the other thing I would
So after, see, this is what's crazy about this whole thing. They keep, now Biden's whole thing is don't make the journey. Okay? Don't come. And all these immigrants are sitting there thinking, wait a second, you just told us we're allowed to come 2-3 months ago, or at the beginning, 3 months before Biden became president. That was his whole campaign promise of, if you vote for me, I'm going to get all the illegal immigrants in. So of course they naturally start flooding the border. So now that there's such a massive crisis, which again, they continue to deny, Biden has changed his tune. And now he's going down or he's sending people down there to say, hey, don't come. Please don't come. Your day will come, but it's not now. So they've done a 180. They've lied. That's exactly what they've done. But Biden, when has Biden ever told the truth in his last 47 years of being senator? And he didn't really do much as a vice president. So did we really believe he was going to honor his promise as a president? Already he's gone back on everything. He's now telling them, don't come. It's not your time.
Say, John, is, what we see from the data is that these surges are cyclical. They're cyclical. They're not the result of one administration's policies or another administration's policies. They're the result of, for example, weather disasters in the region. They're the result of people fleeing poverty and violence. So we saw spikes in 2014. We saw them in 2019 when the Trump administration had perhaps the cruelest imaginable policies in place.
Okay, I got to stop Kate right here for a second because, first of all, she's just lying through her teeth. Just more lies. She calls the crisis cyclical. There's nothing cyclical about this. The fact that the immigrants are wearing Biden-Harris t-shirts and raising signs saying, Biden, let me in, that's not cyclical. That's the immigrants coming because Biden said, come on in. There is nothing cyclical about this situation. And then she goes and tries to blame the whole thing on Trump or compare this situation to Trump in 2019. Yes, there was a border situation. Obama in 2019 actually called it a border crisis when 1,000 illegal immigrants were crossing the border per day. We now have a situation where it's 5 times that number. We now have nearly 5,000 illegal immigrants trying to cross the border every single day. And they refuse to call it a crisis today. So if Obama was calling it a crisis back in 2019, what do you suggest we call it today? Because this is a raging, catastrophic event, if you wanted to call it 2019, a crisis. So she calls it cyclical. It's not cyclical. There's nothing cyclical about this situation because people are coming because Biden said, come on in. They're then stopping to buy their Biden-Harris t-shirts. They're then holding up signs that says Biden-Harris or Biden, please let us in. So they all know Biden promised them. This is everything but cyclical. And for her to them go ahead and start blaming Trump or comparing it to Trump is just a cop-out. This whole interview is a complete sham. It's a farce. And Kate is obviously clutching at straws here.
Separation to try to deter people from coming, and they still came. So this is a cyclical issue. It's one that President Biden has said is unacceptable to him, and he's working very quickly to address it.
But Kate, there is something different here, and that is the unaccompanied minors. And we already have a record number of unaccompanied minors in U.S. Custody. And in just a single day last week, there were 1,000 additional minors who were caught capturing, who were brought into U.S. custody coming across the border. These are record numbers already, and the seasonal surge that you're talking about is only just beginning. This is not, in terms of unaccompanied minors, this is not the same as it's been. This is worse, is it not?
Well, no. And if you look at the numbers,
but the numbers,
not. But that doesn't mean it's not a serious. But that doesn't mean. But John. Yep. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, but I'm saying these are already record numbers of unaccompanied minors. 1,000.
So John's clearly calling her out, and she's saying, listen, Kate, this is not cyclical. Okay, these are record-breaking numbers. Cyclical is when you see the same sort of trend every single year. Sure, we might have time periods of the year where the numbers tend to spike a little bit. We might have drought periods throughout the year. Those are trends. There's nothing cyclical about record-breaking numbers. That a record number, 1,000 plus unaccompanied minors are now crossing the border. And we know it's all drug cartel led. We know that these parents don't stand too much of a chance of getting in, but they know if they send their kids through the drug cartels and pay them the money needed, that there's a very good chance that they'll come into the United States because we're not turning them away. We just spent $89 million to house all of these illegal immigrants. That's how much it's costing right now down at the border. a bill was passed to spend $89 million to house all of these minors. Yet, we can't throw more than $1,400 or $600 to the American people who are struggling because our draconian Democratic governors have locked us down. So we know how twisted everything is in America right now. It's an absolute shit show. It's completely backwards, and we continue to put America last. But we all know this. So I love that John's now calling Kate out, and he's saying there's nothing cyclical about record-breaking numbers.
In a single day.
And it's
already record numbers. It's not the same.
And the president, it is the same. These are the same kinds of surges that we've seen. But look, the important thing here is not a question of whether it's the same or not. The important thing here is the president has said this is unacceptable to him, and he's working to address it. And the way we do that is by finding temporary shelter for these kids who are coming without an adult, and also by speeding up the process, by ensuring that the process is more efficient so that kids are able to move out of these Border Patrol facilities into temporary housing and then be put into immigration processes. That's what we're working to try to do as quickly as possible. But I think it's also important to be clear that our policy hasn't changed. The vast majority of people who arrive at our border, we're turning away under Title 42, under a health code that requires us to or allows us to turn people away in this period of COVID. So people should understand that the vast majority of people who show up at our border, we're turning away. For these unaccompanied children who arrive, the president is working as quickly as possible to move them into facilities that are acceptable, that are in and of themselves short-term solutions, and he's working to rebuild our system of diplomacy in the Northern Triangle so that people are not fleeing these countries, coming to the United States. That's how we ultimately solve the problem.
So clearly, Kate had absolutely nothing important to say throughout that entire interview. John just called her out. We know there's a raging crisis. So how bad is it down there? And my next question is where... We all know the Biden administration, or Biden himself, isn't doing anything. I mean, he's incapable of doing much today. He continues to hide in his basement. He doesn't come out. He's having everybody else handle everything. Kamala Harris is now on the phone with world leaders. There's not much Biden's doing. But you know things are bad, okay? You know things are really bad when the likes of Chris Wallace
out of Border Patrol
now go online. When Chris Wallace now goes online and starts to punk Jen Psaki. So Chris Wallace from Fox News, okay, who we all know Chris Wallace can kind of sit on the neutral fence here, borderline rhino politicians at times, or go full-blown rhino. So Chris Wallace is a little bit wishy-washy. We don't really know what side of the fence he's ever going to sit on. He leans more towards the left these days, which is why a lot of Republicans and conservatives are frustrated with him. So the fact that Chris Wallace is now going online or on record and calling out Jen Psaki for not being transparent, you know things are bad. You know when CNN is getting frustrated with the Biden administration, that things are bad. And it's time to take this situation very seriously. So Christopher Wallace says you are being less transparent than the Trump administration. And good for him for speaking out. Fox News' Chris Wallace ripped White House press secretary Jen Psaki over the Biden administration's media policies when it comes to press access to the southern border. And that's what they continue to do. They continue to hide the truth from the American people. In the press briefing that Biden had last week, he was asked, when are you going to start letting the press cover this story? When are you going to start letting them? And he basically said, when we have it under control. So now, when America wants to hide the truth, I guess we don't let the press in. I mean, that's the direction that we're going. And when the Biden administration gets everything under control, he'll then start to allow access. That's not a democracy. That's not a free country. That's communism. Denying press access to tell the American people the true story is communism. So that's what's accepted today. That's what we're actually allowing. And finally, Republican senators are saying this is completely unacceptable. Finally, the media is saying this is completely unacceptable. And CNN and the likes of Chris Wallace are finally calling this whole thing a charade. completely unacceptable. This is not what we do, because they know if they're trying to hide or deter the media from coming down now, or not deterring, just straight up denying them access on this issue, what else are they going to start denying the media access to in the future? So Christopher Wallace goes online and he slams Jen Psaki for hiding the truth. He says, you guys are way less transparent than the Trump administration ever was. And that's saying something. To be honest, I didn't think the Trump administration was actually less, or I didn't think there was an issue with transparency at all. Donald Trump just straight up didn't care what anybody thought of him. Yeah, go ahead, cover your story, put your spin on it. I don't give a shit. Because when you come to me for answers, I'm just going to tell you the real deal anyway, regardless of how you want to put your spin on it. But go ahead, feel free. So I didn't think there was an issue at all with transparency when it comes to the Trump administration. But it's good to see that Christopher Wallace and CNN are now slamming the media because of what's going on. And my next question is, where the heck is Kamala Harris throughout this entire situation? Where is she? We know the situation's out of control. The Biden administration even kind of admits it right here by saying the Biden administration is putting out a call for government volunteers to report for duty amid the significant surge at the border. So right there, they're admitting it. On one hand, they say we don't have a problem. There's no problem here. Nothing to see. We don't need the media coming down here. Ted Cruz, stop getting your cameras in everybody's faces. There's nothing to see here. But please, volunteers, we need you so badly right now down at the border. I mean, this is ridiculous that they're claiming it's not a crisis, yet they're now calling for volunteers. So which one is it, Joe? Is it a crisis? Is it not a crisis? I mean, we're so confused here, and we wouldn't know the truth anyway because the media is not letting you in, or Biden's not letting the media in. So we wouldn't know the truth, even if we wanted to seek it. So Biden administration is putting out a call for government volunteers to report for duty amid the significant surge. So I guess we're calling it a significant surge now. Okay, not a crisis, a significant surge. And according to White House Communications Director Kate, she claims everything's just under control and that it's cyclical, just cyclical. Even though they have their Biden-Harris t-shirts on, it's cyclical. But many are asking, where's the person deputized to fix the line in the sand crisis? Meaning, where's Harris? What is Harris up to? Harris seems to have gone completely radio silence. Radio silence. So let's see what the keyboard warriors have to say about the situation, because you know the American people have a lot to say on the fact that Harris is nowhere to be seen. Biden administration continues to deny the fact that there's a crisis, yet they're calling for volunteers. Mike says, and these are unpaid volunteers. Or these are not unpaid volunteers. These will be paid federal employees who are volunteering to not do their actual job to go and help out. This tends to mean that the volunteers' co-workers needed to pick up the slack created by this person's absence, which further means that overtime is usually offered. In the long run, it will cost taxpayers even more. So it's a great observation. Biden administration is calling for volunteers to get down there because of Biden's lack of competency regarding the situation. So because the Biden administration can't handle it for whatever reason, Joe refuses to come out of the basement, they're now sending volunteers down, which, according to Mike and his very reasonable statement, these aren't volunteers. These are going to be paid employees, which is going to cost taxpayers more money. And we all know that because we know that they just passed a bill that's going to allow $89 million to develop and create housing for all of these illegal immigrants while we try to process their asylum applications. So again, who's this money going to be passed to? You and I, the American people. And it's already out of control. I mean, look at the national debt. I think we're at something like 28 million or 28 trillion in debt right now. We just keep throwing money at these situations rather than solving the root of the problem, in which this case would be, you're not allowed to come because we're flooded with illegal immigration right now. So everybody go home. That'd be a very simple fix. You're not allowed to come in there right now. And if you do come, go back to Mexico, apply the right way, and then come on in. But for some reason, we refuse to abide by the law. We've just thrown all immigration laws out the window. So now we have this raging border crisis down at the border, which nobody wants to accept or admit. And we're now sending volunteers down there who we all know are going to be paid at the cost of you and I, the taxpayer. Sweet Joe. Real smart on all accounts. Janet says, my understanding is that Biden passed the buck to her and she's passing the buck to someone else. And this is what the left do. This is what the Democrats continue to do. Everybody is passing the buck right now. Nobody knows who to believe. And it's happened since the start of this whole mess. The Biden-Harris administration should be called Dumb and Dumber administration. Actually, that's true. And that's a post that I posted the other day regarding the CDC and the Biden administration. I said we should write a new book called Write Dumb and Dumber Part 2, which really would be the CDC and the Biden administration. Because we don't know. It's like the blind leading the blind right now. I mean, nobody wants to be held accountable in the Biden administration right now. Absolutely nobody. With any situation that's going on right now. Coronavirus, immediately Joe ran on the campaign of curbing coronavirus once and for all. That was his biggest promise. That's all he spoke about for like his entire 100 days of campaigning from his basement. All he did was talk about, I'm going to curb coronavirus. We're going to fix this mess that Trump got us in. Within the first 3 weeks, he comes on record and says, listen, there's nothing I can do to change the trajectory. What's done's done. We just got to brace ourselves. It's like, wait a second, Joe, your whole promise of running, your whole big leadership promise to the American people was going to be to curb the pandemic. And now there's nothing you can do about it. You also promised all these illegal immigrants that they were going to be able to come into the country. And now you're going down. Now you're sending people down there to tell them to go away. So it is constant passing the buck. That is what we see. Trump may have been harsh. He may have been brash, but he was a leader and he got things done. No may not have been the answer you wanted to hear, but at least he didn't turn America in the shit show it is right now. Karen says, 1, they wouldn't need volunteers when Trump was in office. And Biden caused this situation by his immigration policies, and he invited them to come here. 2, why does he need volunteers if there's no crisis? Touche. Where's Harris? I thought he appointed her to fix the issue at the border. Where's Harris? It's very, very bizarre that we don't see anything from Harris. And what's even more interesting is that Harris, and this may tell you a little bit of a clue, here's your answer. White House lists Biden-Harris administration on official website. Neither of the previous 2 administrations listed both the president and vice president on their main website or social media channels. That's interesting. Perhaps Harris is nowhere to be seen right now because she's getting ready to take over. And a very clear sign of this is the fact that White House lists Biden-Harris administration on official website. Since when do we start doing that? Since when do both the president and the vice president go on the White House list or the official website as the president? Usually you only have one president. We're not like co-presidencying here. Usually you got one guy. Well, not with this administration. This is how bad Biden's health is deteriorating. Yet they don't want to admit that either. I mean, we have so many crises going on right now that they continue to deny that it's very clear the direction that we're headed as America right now. We look very weak. Not only are we very divided, we have an administration that lies, that hides the truth, that doesn't want to admit we have a problem, that we now have foreign countries seeing all of this, and we have no idea what kinds of attacks they're getting ready to put on us. If there was ever a time that our foreign enemies would want to strike America, it's right now. Right now is the time. So as a country, we have a reason to be very worried. Things are out of control. We're being lied to. The country's divided. We don't hear from our president ever, we know is incapable. Harris, we barely hear from, so now we don't hear from a vice president. The only person we continue to hear from is Jen Psaki, which the world makes a complete mockery of. And she looks like she's about to cry every single time she comes on camera. I can't believe she even decided or agreed to an interview with Christopher Wallace, which went horribly wrong. So the only people that we continue to hear from today are Jen Psaki, press secretary, and Kate, White House communications director. The only two people we hear from. So yes, as Americans, we should be very worried. We should be worried about the fact that our freedom to report, free press is being taken away. I mean, everything's being taken away today. Guns are being attacked. Our free speech is being attacked. Freedom to assemble. Our freedom to press is now being restricted. I mean, everything is being restricted one by one. China must be loving us right now. They must be sitting there chomping at the bit to get ready to attack. We know they are. They have the biggest navy in the world right now. And we're here worrying about a border crisis. We're here worrying about our guns. If there's ever a time period where we need our guns, it's right now. Let's go over to the keyboard warrior cam and see what the American people have to say about the fact that White House has now listed Biden-Harris administration on the official website. Not normal, people, by any means. Very, very bizarre. Ken says, could a real-life psychologist just say this guy is being used as a puppet? The entire Democratic Party needs to be held accountable for elder abuse and their lack of care for immigrants on the border. In any other country, he would be calling in human rights abuses. Absolutely. This is a human right abuse. It's elderly abuse. They continue to get away with it. Look, can we just say Biden's done? Let's just rip the damn Band-Aid off, throw Harris in the ring, and get on with our lives. I mean, we all knew this was the game plan all along. Why is it taking Pelosi and Schumer forever to throw the 25th Amendment out, to start going down that route? Let's just get this over with now, because we do need some sort of leadership. I don't care what party you're affiliated with, Republican, Democrat. We all know America is a total circus act right now, and we need real leadership. We need it now before things go beyond the point of repair. Ted says, because everybody knows that Biden is not running the show. He is merely a puppet on a string at the end of Harris and Obama's fingertips. Americans are not stupid enough to believe that Biden is actually in charge of anything. I mean, I can pretty much tell you every comment, word for word. I don't need a crystal ball to know that everybody knows that Biden's days are numbered. Crystal says, we all know this was never a vote for Biden. No one will be surprised when he is taken out of office for his mental decline and Harris steps in as president. So sad that the only way she could get into office, she surely couldn't do it on her own merits. And I don't think she could. I think Harris is a freaking clown and an absolute disgrace of a vice president. It just goes to show how messed up America really is. Guys, stay tuned. When we return, I'm going to show you what's going on down in Georgia. We are now having left-wing organizations like golf and Major League Baseball wanting to cancel Georgia because they are furious with the voter laws that Georgia strictly enforced, and rightly so. So now, Georgia's next up on the cancel list. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard, and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
So we all know that cancel culture is holding America hostage on a daily basis. I mean, everything's been getting canceled today. Dr. Seuss got canceled. Monopoly got canceled. Everybody gets canceled. If you don't agree with the left-wing narrative, straight up, you get canceled. Sharon Osbourne just got canceled. Piers Morgan over the UK just got canceled. Everybody who doesn't agree with the left seems to get canceled. And we keep bending over and taking it. Why? Why do we put up with this nonsense? When are we going to actually put our foot down and say enough? Because it's now getting so out of control that left-wing sports organizations now want to cancel entire states if they don't agree with their political policies. This is a very dangerous road we are headed, and we need to put our foot down in order to put an end to this complete madness. Otherwise, America is going to get completely overrun by far-left radical progressive agendas and completely eliminate now states, which is what they're doing over in Georgia. Georgia recently, for those of you who don't know, Georgia put their foot down. They've reversed all of the voting emergency laws that were put into effect pre-COVID, and they said, no, we're not going to have an absolute mess of a situation every single election like we just had. They put their foot down. They're not going to take it. And now the Masters and Major League Baseball are threatening to pull their events out of Georgia if they don't reverse their decisions. Horrible for the country. Guys, the last time I knew, we don't take policy and political instruction from the likes of the Masters, golf, the NBA, and other left-wing organizations. Let's over to Facebook, where we look at what Fox News reported on exactly how out of control this insanity is getting. So, organizations are calling for major sporting events to be moved out of Georgia after the state passed a controversial voting law Thursday. So, what's going on here? Wait a second. Did I just hear that the Masters and MLB, Major League Baseball, are now trying to cancel Georgia? Like, this is the direction that we're headed? Organizations call to move MLB, Major League Baseball All-Star Game. They want to move the Major League Baseball All-Star Game and the Masters out of the state of Georgia over Georgia voting law. This is insane. Let's over to the article and take a look. So left-wing organizations try to intimidate. This is what's happening now. This is how far we are going with this nonsense. Left-wing organizations try to intimidate the Masters Major League Baseball All-Star Game to move over Georgia voting law. So there was a law that was signed Thursday by Governor Brian Kemp after swiftly passing the state legislature. So what law are we talking about here? Let's break the insanity down here for you guys to get caught up on exactly why Major League Baseball and golf are throwing their toys out of the window because they didn't get their way. Organizations are calling for major sporting events to be moved out of Georgia. Okay, so after the state passed a controversial voting law on Thursday. So what exactly is going on here? So the National Black Justice Coalition, the Black and LGBTQ civil rights group, said in a statement that golfers should refuse to play the Masters, an annual tournament at Georgia's Augusta National Golf Course, unless the law is being repealed. First of all, what does the National Black Justice Coalition and LGBTQ have anything to do with Georgia wanting to put in effect their own voting laws? Why do these two organizations have anything to do with anything? So now they're putting pressure on Major League Baseball and the Masters tournament, Georgia's Augusta National Golf Course, unless the law is repealed. And see, this keeps happening. We keep allowing these groups, these left-wing lobbyists, these left-wing organizations to cancel everything that gets in their way. And we keep putting up with it. We keep tolerating it. And now, once again, we're being held hostage. Georgia put their foot down. And Georgia said, no, I do not want to allow voters to come to the voting booth without ID. It's very simple. They want IDs to be shown when voting. Very reasonable request. They don't want it to get out of hand. They feel like there was a lot of dodgy stuff that went on during the election, especially the Georgia state runoff, and they put their foot down. So my question is, why does the black community care? Why are we seeing... First of all, what do the voting laws in Georgia have to do with black communities and the LGBTQ community? They have nothing to do with it. Why are they victimizing themselves for Georgia putting their foot down? This is the lunacy that we face today. It's absolute insanity that we are actually allowing the black community and the LGBTQ community to victimize themselves over these voting laws. What? Gay people don't know how to get to a voting booth? Black people don't know how to get in their car and get to a voting booth? I mean, what's the deal here? It's not like white people are the only ones who have cars that can drive to a voting booth, because this is one of the laws that Georgia put their foot down on. No, we're not going to extend mail-in voting. No, we're not going to allow everybody and their uncle to mail in ballots. No, you're going to get down to the voting booth and you're going to vote normally like everybody else. And we're going to have set times that you need to take off work just like the rest of us to go put in your vote. It's very simple. But all of a sudden, we're now suppressing black voters. We're suppressing gay voters because they have to drive to the voting booths. And if you can't drive, you take public transportation the same way you would if you have to get to work. You don't tell your employer, oh, well, listen, I can't come into work ever because I don't have a car. The employer's going to say, I don't give a shit that you don't have a car. Find public transportation. Why can't we do the same thing for voting? Find public transportation. Get a ride. Ask your boss for a morning off. If anything, we should make it a rule or a law that everybody gets off during Election Day. That would be a great executive order that I'd like to see. That would actually be fair. Let's make sure everyone is allowed to take off during Election Day. So when the poll wants to close at 7 o'clock p.m., you're not crying about the fact that you couldn't get off work quick enough. So we have it all backwards, obviously. This has nothing to do with black community or LGBTQ+. But since we're in the habit of canceling everything that the left doesn't get their way on, why not cancel Georgia too? Why not cancel the Masters? Let's cancel the Major League Baseball game. So Major League Baseball and Georgia's like, or the Masters, like, what the hell, dude? We have nothing to do with this. We don't want to be a part of this BS. Leave us out of it. Nope. Because the National Black Justice Coalition, a black and LGBTQ civil rights group, have now hijacked the Masters. They said, nope, we don't like this. We're not happy with the law. We're going to put pressure on the Masters now and the Major League Baseball All-Star game and say, hey, you guys better agree with us on this. Otherwise, you're next. We're coming after you next. So we're constantly being held hostage. So my question has always been, who's the woke mob? Who's to blame on the cancellation of Dr. Seuss, Monopoly, and everybody else that gets in the way? Well, we're starting to see clues of it right here today. For the first time ever, the woke mob is being exposed. The black community, the LGBTQ plus civil rights group are maybe the ones behind the situation. So what do the PGA Tour and Masters Tournament have to say? So the PGA Tour and Masters Tournament have both made commitments to help diversify golf and address racial inequalities in this country. That is ridiculous. What do racial inequalities have anything to do with voting? Black people are allowed to vote. Minorities are allowed to vote. It's not like they weren't allowed to vote and all of a sudden we're trying to pass laws to get black people to vote. Oh, that happened decades ago. Black people have been allowed to vote forever now. So the fact that the PGA Tour and the Masters Tournament have made commitments to help diversify golf, this is ridiculous. What was not diversified about voting before? And this is my biggest argument when black people try to tell me, well, they're trying to suppress voters. I'm like, who? Who are they trying to suppress? Because you guys have been allowed to vote just like the rest of us this entire time. So exactly who is being suppressed here? So I completely disagree with the statement. I think it's absolute insanity that the PGA has even come out with this and suggested that there's been inequalities or inequities. Not even, hold on a second. It's not even inequality anymore. It's inequities. And we expect them to not only speak out against Georgia's new racist voter suppression law, but to also take action. They're now calling it a racist voter suppression law. Guys, black people, you got to stop with the victim card. It's getting really old. Every time you don't get your way, you play the victim. What voter suppression law issues do we have over what just happened down in Georgia? All Georgia did was say, you need to vote between these times. You need to get down to the polls like everybody else. If you live out of the country, okay, or if you live out of the state, that's fine. You can mail in your ballot. No, we're not going to have a million mail-in ballot drop boxes all over the state that are prone to fraud. We're not doing that. We're going to have ballots only put out during hours where the government buildings can monitor these mail-in ballots. After 5 o'clock, we're pulling them inside. This is all that Georgia's done. They've limited their times from about 9 in the morning to 7 at night. They want to close the polls at 7. Okay, get down to the polls like everybody else during normal times. They also stopped water and food from being handed out. And they've done that because there's already rules and laws in place that says you cannot campaign in front of a voting poll station. You cannot campaign. So if Democrats are out there handing out water and food, that's campaigning. Same as Republicans. If Republicans are handing out food and water and now other incentives, that is considered campaign fraud. So I don't want to hear, well, it's inhumane that we're not handing out water. If people want water, bring your own freaking water bottle. It's not hard. If you're hungry, make sure you eat. I mean, why are we treating everybody like they're in 5th grade? This is America, for Christ's sake, not some developing, emerging market where we have no clue. Okay, this kind of crap goes on in North Korea, Indonesia, Thailand, I don't know, where they hand out water because people, for some reason, don't know how to hydrate themselves, like a developed country do, God forbid. So this has nothing to do with being inhumane. It absolutely has nothing to do with race. Because there isn't a single law that Georgia just put back into effect that discriminates against black people. And where the lesbian gay community get off trying to victimize themselves is beyond me. Okay? Because they have nothing to do with any of this. Neither do black people. But the fact that lesbian and gays have now jumped on the bandwagon is mind-blowing to me. So every minority group right now wants to play the victim card. And that's exactly what they're doing once again. Georgia as a state has every right to decide their own voter laws. So the PGA Tour and the Masters Tournament are now calling Georgia racist over voter suppression laws. And they also want to take action. Good luck. Because the last time the NBA took action over this ridiculousness, their ratings plummeted so severely, so badly, that they had to reverse everything, rip the Black Lives Matter armbands off them. And the NBA commissioner said, guys, listen, unless you want your pay to now be cut because ratings are so poor, we're going to need you to cut out any political talk from now on. Within 2 seconds, they all said, fine, we're done. We'd rather keep our pay than actually take a real stand. Of course we did, you cowards. We knew all along pay would supersede your your 5 seconds of activism. And sure enough, they all took or kept their original pay if they all stopped talking about it. The same thing's going to happen with Major League Baseball and golf, which we all know are predominantly white demographics for viewership anyway. I mean, listen, let's not even beat around the bush here. We know golf is primarily white viewership. So it would be very dangerous for golf or the Masters to actually really want to try and get in the middle of this one, because it's not going to end well for either of these sporting organizations. So if I were them, I would tell the Black Coalition, the National Black Justice Coalition, and the LGBTQ civil rights group to F right off, because they are going to kill these two sporting organizations the same way the NBA was destroyed. And we know they still haven't rebounded to pre-BLM highs. And I don't think they ever will, because people have had enough of the nonsense. So activists have also called for a boycott of Atlanta-based companies like Coca-Cola. Okay, so now they want to go after Coca-Cola, who've expressly come out against the new law. What happened? I thought Coca-Cola was trying to create what happened to the Coca-Cola's Less White campaign? That clearly didn't work. You see what's happened here? These companies are being held hostage to the woke mob. And they come out with these stupid Be Less White campaigns, and they still get canceled. You thought Coca-Cola would have dodged a bullet with their Be Less White campaign, right? You would have thought. Nope. Nope. Because activists now clearly are not happy with Coca-Cola. Activists have called for a boycott of Atlanta-based companies like Coca-Cola, who have not expressly come out against the new law. So now, if you're silent, you also get canceled. Unless you do exactly what the woke mob tells you to do, you will get canceled. Coca-Cola already came out with a Be Less White campaign to try to cater to the equity BS that the Biden administration keeps flaunting. Clearly, that wasn't good enough. Every time they want you to come running, you better, or you're getting canceled. Just because you did it once doesn't mean you get a free pass for the rest of your life. Oh no, the woke mob is now going to screw you every single time you don't stand up and do exactly what they say. And it's happening right now. It's getting out of control. The woke mob continues to come after Georgia, because all they want to do is standardize voting hours from 9 to 5 a.m. or as long as 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's all. So this is Georgia wants to do. They want to standardize voting hours from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. or as long as 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. It requires 2 Saturdays of early voting instead of 1, and makes 2 Sundays optional for early voting. It also continues to allow absentee voting without offering a reason, but requires a state-issued ID to request a ballot. Very fair. We don't want voter fraud. Why does the left pushing so hard to attack Georgia? The only reason I can believe is because they actually want voting fraud. And that's exactly what H.R. 1 is. It's an attempt to legalize voting fraud. So anybody who's looking at this and calling this voter suppression, okay, has no clue what they're talking about. If anything, they should ask the question of, why do the left want to push so hard to get rid of ideas? What's the real objective here? What are they really trying to get away with? Because they are trying to get away with exactly that. The law also bans handing out water and food to voters waiting in line at the polls and shortens runoff elections from 9 weeks to 4 weeks. Very understandable. We do not want elections going on and on and on and on. 4-week election period is more than sufficient enough for everybody to get their votes in. Why did they ban out water and food to voters? Again, because I just explained. Because you're not allowed to campaign in front of polling stations. If a certain party starts giving out food and water, that's considered campaigning. But of course, you better believe the civil rights group's going to be that's inhumane, because Americans forgot how to hydrate and they don't know when to eat all of a sudden. How freaking stupid. And now golf and Major League Baseball want to cancel the entire state of Georgia if they don't get their way, because the Black Coalition Group and the LGBTQ civil unions groups are now putting pressure on them, because for some reason they want to play the victim card once again for an issue that has nothing to do with minority at all. Under the law, ballot drop boxes are also limited. Fair. They will be placed at early voting locations, but only available while the precincts are open. Yeah, because we don't want them being tampered with. The law also tilts some power over elections to state lawmakers. God forbid we let the states call the shots again, which they've done for the last 100 years, and the Georgia State Election Board. The law would also wrest election authority from Georgia's Secretary of State, allowing the Republican-controlled legislature instead to appoint a chair of the state election board. All very reasonable requests. But for some reason, once again, somebody's got to play the race card, right? Because that's all America knows how to do. Let's, quick, every single time there's a change, who could be the next victim? How could we victimize black people again? How could we victimize lesbian, gay community again? Let's get Major League Baseball and golf now on board to go after Georgia. Let's hold them hostage to get them to do our dirty work, which is what's going on, and it continues to go on in America. How about everybody just back the F off, let politicians start calling the shots again instead of being made to feel like they're being held hostage every time they want to make a law that's truly good for the American people. Because I agree with Georgia 100% in this case. At some point, we need to put our foot down to cancel culture and stand up to the tyranny and the woke mob, and I hope these two organizations do just that. Thank you guys for joining me this morning. Tune in every single day, Monday through Friday here at You Made It Political. Take care.
Thanks for listening to You Made It Political with Matt Clark. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show, or leave us a review on iTunes. And if you like our show or want to know more, check out YouMadeItPolitical.com.